Hadi Choopan's got the best abs on that Olympia stage. You know why? It's not any protocols. It's not any special abdominal training exercises. He was born with those genetics, period. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. We thank you for joining us. This is your forum for whatever you have on your mind, be it bodybuilding, diet, training, nutrition, or anything having to do with bodybuilding in general or non-bodybuilding, anything about Dave. It is all on the table. We have a lot of questions to get to. The first two questions on this show, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience. Our first question is about, well, Hadi Choopan is specifically mentioned, but he wants to know, what are these guys doing, etc., like you mentioned, Hadi Choopan, to bring their waist in? I imagine it's a combination of gut health, waist trainers, vacuum exercising. Is it possible to research and design a protocol for this? You know, we just heard from Arnold Schwarzenegger a few weeks ago at the Arnold Classic, and one of the things that he was most impressed about was the symmetry, was the fact that today's bodybuilder, as opposed to maybe 5-6 years ago, are bringing their waist in. So what do you think Hadi and some of these guys are doing today?
Well, you got to remember, Hadi is one of the smaller bodybuilders. So is Derek Lunsford. These are not like mass monster guys. And they genetically have good waistlines. So what's Hadi doing? What's the routine he's using? He was born that way. All right. Having said that, obviously the guy trains hard. He has massive amounts of muscle on his body. He just happens to have a very good genetic taper. And that's why he's Mr. You know, he was Mr. Olympia, why he won the Arnold Classic. I mean, Flex Wheeler, same thing. People say, how did Flex get his waist so small? He doesn't know. He was born that way. Okay, some guys, Jay Cutler does not have a small waist. He has a very wide waist. He has very good abs insertions, but he does not have a small waist, but he's very genetically wide on top. So he creates an illusion of a taper, but he doesn't have a small waist. So it's bodybuilding's an illusion. Now, how do you get a great vacuum pose on stage? That requires practice. I actually have a video up that has a gazillion hits on it. It's called intestinal breathing exercises. And it shows you how to, you know, it's a kind of a Korean yoga technique of working your abs every day. What you're doing is you suck your stomach in, you push it out. You suck it in, you push it out. Do 300 of those every single day. And before you know it, you'll be doing vacuums on stage. You won't even be thinking about it. So plus it helps with organ health because it releases toxins from the organ because you're kind of milking the organs with the abdominal muscles contracting on them. So that's really good for vacuums. Some people just do vacuums all day long, and that will work as well. But in terms of how small your waist is and how your ab insertions look, I wish I could tell you there was a special training technique to do that, but there just isn't. Now, some people do use waist shapers, those things that they're like, it's basically a corset, and they're very uncomfortable. I still am not, you know, do they work? Yeah, they work if you wear them all the time. I know some women who really got their waist super tiny on that. But, you know, there's the, you know, possibility that they do shift the position of your organs around a little bit, which potentially can cause some problems down the road. So you don't want to go too extreme with something like that. They're also very uncomfortable to wear. And you really have to wear them all the time if you want to get the benefits of it. So that's another option, obviously, as well. But for most people, it's a genetic thing.
Second question, again, these two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It has been a while, or at least on this show, maybe not off the show, maybe on other channels, where somebody told us that the show sucks. So this question starts off with, Dave, it's been a minute and your show still sucks, harkening back to the 2017-2019 era. I've been battling a shoulder issue for a year now. I get acupuncture, cupping, massage, physio, etc. weekly, but it still won't go. So he wants, I guess, a supplement solution, suggestions like GH or TBC for shoulder issues.
Yeah, if I would have done this 5 or 6 years ago, I probably would have given you a different recipe. But I really do like the BPC 157. BPC stands for Body Protective, whatever. Body Protective, I think. I can't remember the name of it. But it seems to induce healing really well. I used it after a couple of my surgeries. I definitely noticed a difference. The dosage that you should be using is 200 micrograms twice a day. If you can put it into the area right around where the injury is, it seems to help and work a little bit better. I do know people that have gone as high as 1,000 micrograms per day of the stuff, and they said they did get better results. I've always used 200 twice a day, and it seems to work really, really well at that dosage. So I don't think you need to go quite that excessively, but I guess it depends on how bad the injury is. Now, it's one thing to have a peptide or protein hormone that's inducing healing, but it's another thing you have to give your body the raw materials it needs to repair the joint and connective tissue. And we don't eat ligaments and tendons and cartilage. So you have to take a joint repair supplement. We make something from Species Nutrition called Arthrolyze. It's a very high potency glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM boron product. It's the highest potency one on the market. It's a month's supply. You're going to get 4 grams of glucosamine and 4 grams of MSM per day. I would recommend taking 5 pills twice a day. I would also add another 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C, because vitamin C is a component of collagen connective tissue, to that, along with the BPC 157. And if you want to add a little DECA, now DECA is going to reduce inflammation. It's not going to heal the area, but it will get rid of some of the inflammatory stuff that's going on there, which sometimes is, sometimes the injury heals itself, but you still have inflammation there. So even 100 milligrams of DECA per week will give you that anti-inflammatory effect. So if you combine all those, you're going to get a nice result. If you want to throw GH in there for good measure, you can add 2 IUs of GH too, but I think the BPC 157 is going to be more effective than the GH at healing that injury. So give that a shot. It can't hurt also if you have a doctor that does PRP treatment, platelet-rich plasma. They spin your blood down, they take the plasma, they inject it into the area because there's a bunch of growth factors in there. That can help as well. If you do everything, that's probably your best bet. Target everything. These are good questions, and these came from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's an app that I have that you can download on your Android phone or on your iTunes phone from the App Store. It's $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. Essentially, I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers. You see all my videos and writings I've ever done my whole career. It's all in one spot. We put up a workout every single week. I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app members every single week. So in addition to Ask Dave that I give away on YouTube, we get a special Q&A for the app members. So it's a great learning experience. We have a lot of members, and it's constantly growing. So I want to thank you guys for supporting the app. I get a lot of great feedback. People saying, you know what, for $29 a month, I get so much information on there. It's just it keeps me up to date on the latest and greatest of everything. So thank you.
We'll take questions from our Facebook and Instagram pages. Again, those 2 questions were from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you're not already following us on Facebook, just go to the search bar, type in RxMuscle, on Instagram, official_RxMuscle. Robert Puentes with a question that we do get periodically, but again, with the importance of it, it is important to have, I guess, timely reminders. And so he wants to know specifically about blood testing, but specifically most important markers one should look for on a blood test.
Everything's important, I guess, but, just for argument's sake, I always look at kidney function on bodybuilders tests, because creatinine, which will tell you if your kidneys are filtering your blood properly, is a good marker of are the kidneys working. I worry about that. Fasting blood sugar, glucose levels, assuming you did the test. Fasting is important, but you can do those at home. Those are pretty easy if you get a little glucometer from Walmart. But I look at that. I look at cholesterol levels, especially if you have a family history. I want to make sure your LDL is not too high. I don't look at liver enzymes because we know that working out raises liver enzymes, so it's not really a good, accurate assessment of anything. Unless you're sick, your blood cell count's not going to be a big deal. Most bodybuilders who are on some kind of either HRT or cycle, they're going to have high red blood cells. I don't get too worried about that. That's par for the course. And I'm not, like I said, I haven't seen anything that was so dangerously high that I worried about it. Most bodybuilders have normal platelet levels, which are the clotting factor, so I'm not really concerned about that either. Then you can get into the more esoteric testing. You could test testosterone, estrogen, DHT to see how your hormonal profiles are. Obviously, I'd like to see thyroid function, TSH, free T3, which is your active thyroid hormone, free T4. You want to make sure that whole axis is working properly, because some people who have weight gain, it could be because their thyroid is a little sluggish or they're not doing something properly. I like to have vitamin D3 levels checked. A lot of people are deficient in that. I know I tell people to take V-Mineralized, which is 2,000 units of D3 in there, and I tell them to take an additional 5,000 to bring them up to 7,000 I use a day. Not everyone does it. This will tell you if you're deficient. So if you come back at 30, you know that you're not taking enough vitamin D3. And that's one of the hormones that's really important. And I say hormones because vitamin D3 is really a steroidal hormone. We call it a vitamin, but it's a steroidal molecule. It's unbelievable. If you look at the structure of it, it looks just like a testosterone molecule. And it's because it is steroidal in nature. So obviously our bodies need it. It's a precursor to a lot of things that goes on in the body. So these are, things that you want to check out on a regular basis. And other than that, you're not going to really see anything too dramatic. Obviously, iron status. Sometimes guys have too much iron in their body, or women a lot of times have too little iron in the body. You can check iron levels and ferritin levels and see how those are doing. But if you go for typical blood work, they usually send you for what's called a basic metabolic panel, which goes through all the liver enzymes and kidney function, and then a CBC, which is your blood cell count, which is going to go through all the white blood cells, red blood cells. And usually they add cholesterol on top of that there, thyroid function, testosterone, estrogen, DHT, check your vitamin D3, and you pretty much got your bases covered. I like to also check C-reactive protein, which is a measure of how much inflammation is in your body. If it's excessively high, that's not a good thing. If it's, low, that's great. So these are pretty much the health markers that I look at when people send me blood work. Now, some blood work is much more comprehensive. Some blood work is not as comprehensive. But at the end of the day, there's a couple, like I said, the kidney function is something I always look at. Cholesterol levels I look at. Those are important. And blood glucose for sure.
Let's go to Mike Molinaro. What can you recommend to ease the bloating and digestive issues from eating 5 times a day? Is betaine HCl with pepsin good, or do you recommend any other digestive enzymes? Really don't know how bodybuilders eat so much.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one more thing about the last question. I also like to do a hemoglobin A1C, which is the average blood sugar over 3 months. That's a very, interesting and good marker too. If you're running high, that means your blood sugars are running high, most of the time. Having said that, getting back to the question, how do we, prevent bloating? You got to figure out what's causing the bloating, because I never, yes, when I would eat 6, 8, 9 times a day, I would feel full, but I wasn't necessarily bloated where I was like uncomfortable. Bloated. Maybe I just got used to it. If you're getting like gassy and like bloated, like excessively bloated, it might be a food that you're eating that's doing that. A lot of times the culprit is lactose, and it doesn't have to be the fact that you're drinking milk. You can get it from cheese. You can get it from other dairy, cottage cheese, yogurts. If you're lactose sensitive, you got to be careful, because that will absolutely bloat you. Because what happens is if your body doesn't have the lactase enzyme, the bacteria in your gut will ferment the stuff, and that creates methane gas, and it's going to fill your bowel up with that gas, and you'll be farting it out, you'll be burping it out, but it'll also be bloating your stomach out. So you want to prevent that. Now, other people have other sensitivities. Some people have wheat sensitivities. If you're gluten intolerant, although I don't really see that much anymore, you can be tested for that. They can do a blood test and see if you have a gluten allergy or anything like that. But for most people, it's a lactose dairy thing. And a lot of times people don't even realize, they're like, I don't eat any dairy products. I said, well, do you take whey protein? They're like, yeah. but I use a whey isolate. Well, I said, well, not all whey isolates are equal. You know, isolized, which is what we make from Species Nutrition, is the highest yield isolate. The market has no lactose in it. But there are some isolates that are not as high quality that do have a little bit of lactose in it. And if you're really sensitive to lactose like I am, they would bother your stomach. So you have to be careful. There's a lot of hidden things in there. And if you're just one of these, then there's another population of people who just can't eat a lot of food. I don't know why. I was always a great eater, but a lot of people, when they put too much food down, they feel like nauseous all the time. They can't get it down. Now that could be due to just genetics. Maybe you have a very small stomach capacity, or it could be that you're taking orals. A lot of times oral anabolic steroids kill your appetite and make you kind of nauseous. So be wary of that. That could also be a problem. He didn't really give us that much information, so I'm just giving you all the different scenarios that can cause what's happening. But it's usually there is a culprit. And if you sit down and you put together a food diary and figure out what you're doing on a daily basis, you should be able to figure out what's causing it.
Michael Harris wants to know about your time on the set of the Batman movie in the 90s.
I think I talked about that before. You know who was on the set with me? So and if I'm repetitive, because I'm sure I've told the story before, I'm not going senile. They asked the question. All the exterior scenes of Batman. I guess it was the third Batman movie, the one Val Kilmer played Batman. All the scenes, the exterior scenes, were outside at night, and they were all shot in New York. All the interior scenes were shot in LA. So they needed a bunch of big guys to be part of the Tommy Lee Jones played Two-Face, and he had a gang of like criminals. We all wore masks and everything like that. And they needed some big bodybuilders. So I know Jimmy Pelleccia did it. I did it. My friend RJ did it. I even brought in a young kid that I was working with at the time to do it. And Al-Q Gurley, pro bodybuilder, was there. He did it. And we all hung out for 10 days of shooting. We were in Manhattan and Wall Street for half the time. And then we were out on Long Island, which was kind of cool because I was close to my house, at a something called Webb Institute or Webb Manor, which was Wayne Manor essentially, because it was a big W on the gate. And we filmed out there. And everything was shot at night. So we got paid night differential. We got paid stunt pay. And essentially we just sat around most of the time just eating, because they have the best catered food on these big production movie sets. And it was a closed set. It was a private set. So when you pulled up to the place where they were shooting, it was like they had some kind of fake name on there. They didn't want anyone to know they were shooting Batman there. So we would literally shoot for 10 minutes. It seemed like they would take them hours to set up each scene. And we would shoot 10 minutes it would take of shooting. We'd do 10 takes. And then that scene that we shot was about 3 seconds in the movie. That's how Hollywood works. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a complete waste of time. But I had a great time because I hung out with all those guys. We ate all the time. We were just shooting the shit. And, that was back in, the days where I think I was 315 pounds. I was really, really big. And, we were just talking bodybuilding the whole time. It was fun. We just hung out the whole time. And like I said, if I could have done more movies like that, I would have. That would have been great. It's funny because everyone who was there, except me, because I knew this was we were stereotyped. We were typecast. Everyone thought they were going to be a big movie star because we were in the Batman movie. I said, guys, let me tell you something. I've done a few movies and some commercials. We're extras. We're not that important. They just couldn't find big guys, so that's why they had to find bodybuilders. But it was fun. I did have fun with those guys for that week, and Jimmy Pelleccia was very funny there, and that's when he was back in his heyday too. So he was the alpha male in that group for sure.
So this question might be about 5.5 months early. It's from Mark Angeles. Is this the year that CBUM loses his Classic Physique Olympia title?
I don't think he's going to lose. I think it will be a good show. I think they'll hype the thing up through the roof. I think that Wesley Vissers will certainly be more important in this year's Olympia than he was in years past, where it was kind of like Urs and Ramon and Bumstead. Now you're going to see another guy in the mix. I think that Wesley is probably taller than Chris. He's probably a little bigger than Chris. So it might make the show a little bit more interesting, but I think Chris's proportion is just too good for Wesley. So I don't think he's going to beat him, but you never know. That's what makes things exciting. The fact that we actually have an unknown factor now, with the fact that Wesley kind of took over that second position by beating Urs. Now he had, until we see them all standing next to each other, we're not going to really know, who's best. But I think it does add another level or another layer of excitement. I think that it would be anticlimactic if Chris decides not to do it. But if he's going to be there, I think it will probably be the most anticipated Classic Physique Olympia that we've had, for sure.
Let's go to Iron Head Corporal. So earlier we talked about, shoulder, BPC, and other compounds for shoulder pain. This is more in terms of for massage. The week before your show, how many days would you recommend to get a deep tissue massage prior to competition?
Yeah, when you get to 7 days out, no more massages, because massage breaks down muscle. So we want to let the muscle start to heal up when we get about a week out. So you can do massage deep tissue right up to about a week out from a show, and then that's it.
Paulie 3219. There's a question about Patrick Moore. While you're answering, I'll pull up the picture that he posted earlier this week. I think we posted on our Instagram. Your thoughts on Patrick Moore? Obviously, he's had a lot of different ups and downs, different chapters over the course of the last few years. We saw him, burst onto the scene in 2019 at the Olympia. We last saw him. I don't know if he competed after last year's Arnold Classic, but your thoughts on what you've seen out of him, and I guess now where you see him going in terms of his overall potential, amongst the elite of bodybuilding.
I love Patrick's physique. I think he's got a really, really good physique. And I think that he's just still growing into his body. I always look at guys and say, I don't understand why these guys can't put on, 15 pounds of muscle every single year. Sometimes you have setbacks. He's had injuries, but he's got a really nice flow to his body, and he's got really good lines. And when he's in the best shape of his life, he's very tough to beat. The problem is that a lot of times you'll see guys that just outsize him. It looks like, at least from these pictures, that he's put on a lot more size than he's had in the past, which is exactly what he needed to do. So it'll be interesting to see when he's in shape what he's going to bring to the stage. He kind of made improvements along the lines of like a Hunter Labrada. Hunter put on a lot of size this past year too, and we kind of thought he was tapped out. But what happens is when you're young, you grow all through your 20s, and sometimes you grow better towards the end of your 20s. Now, I think Patrick's in his 30s already, but he obviously had a good year. He didn't get it. He had no injuries. He put on a lot of size. He's obviously dedicated to the process. I'm excited to see what he's going to look like in shape. Don't be surprised if he gets back to that Olympia again.
Of course, we saw the pictures now being coached by our good friend Dom Cardone. So Dom Cardone doing a good job beefing up Patrick Moore. We'll see what he has to offer over the course of the contest calendar. Chester Brown wants to know any truth to the notion that taking antihistamines for hay fever could inhibit muscle recovery or growth.
I read a couple articles back in the day because a lot of people were talking about taking it. There was an antihistamine known as Periactin that a lot of guys took in the 80s for increasing appetite. If you can get past the first week of sleeping all day long because they make you very tired. Once you get past the first week, supposedly they don't make you tired anymore, but then they make you increase your food intake. But I had read an article that antihistamines can inhibit growth hormone release. So I didn't really like that study. And I know that they're really not good to sleep. They don't give you a good quality of sleep. Antihistamines, they kind of keep you out of REM sleep. So I'm not a big fan of them personally. If you can limit your consumption of them, just to when you're sick, I think you'll be fine. But I wouldn't be taking them chronically all the time.
These comparison questions. Soren Popa, and by love, you hate him. Prime Phil Heath, Big Ramy 2020, who wins?
I think Heath wins. I like when Phil was at his best, even though he wasn't as big as Ramy, I still think his conditioning was so good. His ab insertions were good. He had a really tiny waist. He was tough to beat. You'd have to have like the same freaky, like Ronnie Coleman at his best would have beat Phil at his best. Maybe, and I think Dorian would have too, just because they would have outsized him, but with grainy conditioning. Ramy never had like crazy grainy conditioning. He was good. Obviously, he was just Olympia twice, right? But he wasn't like ridiculous. So I don't think he's a better bodybuilder than Phil Heath at his best.
I'll ask you this as well because you and Chris Zito had a conversation. I think it was last week where you're talking about the potential of Ramy coming back and whether or not he has anything left in the tank. And Chris made
Yeah.
the point that he feels as if Ramy still never actually hit his peak properly. Even the two Olympias that he won. So, in your opinion, did we actually ever see Ramy at his all-time best? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I don't think that Ramy ever peaked himself out. He was probably the closest when he was working with Chris that one time, and it didn't even happen at the Olympia. It happened the week after at the Arnold Europe.
Yeah.
I thought that was his best ever. He was shredded for that show. But yeah, I don't think that the problem with Ramy is we might see him bring his best conditioning in ever to the Olympia this year, but I don't think his physique is what it was when he was in his prime. He obviously has some lat insertion issues at the bottom. I don't know whatever happened there. His arms are not as big as they were when he first came out. He's been posting a lot of videos on his Instagram. I don't know if it's him or someone else posting them, but they're old videos. So I just don't think his physique is up to where it was, and that just happens with age. I hate to say it. I look in the mirror at myself and I'm like, I've put on some size and I look a lot better than when but you just can't regain your best look because your body changes. It's things, the structure of it changes. Injuries cause you to compensate in certain areas, and it doesn't have the same pizzazz it had when you were younger. Jay Cutler always said we were all better when we were younger, he said, and a little smaller. So there's some truth to that statement. So can Ramy come in with awesome conditioning at the Olympia? Yes. Will his physique be better than it was at his best? Probably not. Will he place top 5? Depends what everyone else looks like, I don't think he's going to win, though.
Let's go to Tarsal. Your thoughts on muscle growth, performance, health, and longevity using products daily or cycles such as antibiotics, antivirals, and immunomodulators. So it mentions rapamycin is popular for longevity but inhibits mtor. However, many in the longevity crowd promote high protein and fitness also with rapamycin. You take valtrex daily. What have you noticed from yourself and others in regard to taking various products and the positives and negatives?
Yeah, I don't think that I would take these like rapamycin and some of these weird like drugs that people think are anti-aging, like metformin. I'm not sold on them. I don't think you should be taking medications that don't necessarily have any benefits. Do I think that they're going to make people live longer? No, I don't. I really don't. I don't think we've gotten there yet. I think we will. I think one day we're going to start finding some stuff that really does make us live longer, or even maybe a better quality of life. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think there's enough research. I don't like the fact that rapamycin inhibits mTOR. It doesn't sound like a very good thing to me. Like mTOR is there for a reason. mTOR is the switch basically that turns on protein metabolism, protein synthesis. Why would you want to keep the switch off in your body? I know they show that if the switch is off more, you live longer, or at least in mice they live longer. They haven't proven it in humans. So I'm not buying, I don't care. I think I would like to repair muscle and be able to, repair my body. I don't think it's a good idea to keep that switch off. Likewise, metformin just inhibits the liver from releasing glucose. Probably not a good idea. Like if the liver needs to release glucose, there must be a reason it does. If you can't control your blood sugar, maybe you should just take some long-acting insulin. Just like if we have low testosterone when we hit 40 and 50 years old, we take a shot of testosterone every week to supplement with it. Why don't we do that for insulin? That's what I do. I take a shot of long-acting insulin, every day, and my blood sugars are great. So that just happens as we get older. Our bodies do not become as competent at producing hormones. We know that melatonin production completely dives down when you hit about 35, 40 years old. That's why we supplement with it. Melatonin's a hormone. Thank God it's legally, you can legally buy it, because I can see them making it a prescription because it is a hormone. And they've shown that it has really good antioxidant effects. It's great against COVID. It's tremendous at giving you a good quality of sleep. And now they're showing that melatonin dosages that are higher than they thought previous are actually good for you. They're suggesting 10 and 20 milligrams per day. Whereas before they thought 3 milligrams was too high. I up my dosage. I'm taking, what am I taking? I think I'm taking like 10 milligrams a day now. I've worked my way up to it. And I got a really good night's sleep on that stuff. So there's a lot that we have to supplement with. as we get older if we want to be able to maintain those hormone levels that we just can't produce. Do I think throwing some of these other weird, wacky things there? I'm not against it. Let the other people try it out. If it works, let me know. So far, I haven't seen any research to show that it does anything positive.
Take a couple more questions. Musclehead 34, can I eat right after or before an HGH shot?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The whole thing about eating, not eating with the growth hormone came from the fact that we know that naturally in our bodies, growth hormone tends to be released, okay, when we're not eating, when carbohydrate intake is low. So when blood sugar is low, GH, a lot of times, that's when GH is released. Low insulin levels. Insulin and GH work opposite each other. So when insulin is high, because you're eating carbs, growth hormone is low. When insulin is low, because you're not eating carbs or you're not eating, growth hormone is high. So that's where the whole thing, take it before bed on an empty stomach. Well, that's silly. First of all, our bodies produce growth hormone before bed or while we're sleeping. So why would you want to take a shot then and suppress it? Take the growth hormone your body's not producing, the GH, which is in the morning. And it doesn't matter whether you eat or not, because you know what? You're taking the GH. You're not trying to release GH. You're actually taking the hormone. So it doesn't matter what the conditions are inside your body when you take it. As a matter of fact, growth hormone causes IGF-1 release, which helps drive nutrients into the cells. So if you eat a meal like breakfast and you take your shot of growth hormone with it, it's going to help drive that breakfast, although it's food, into the muscle cells. So to me, I just take it. Well, I don't take it anymore because I had thyroid cancer. But when I did take growth hormone, I used to take it first thing in the morning.
Raw muscle glutes, and I had to make sure that, all right, he's not trolling us, but this is someone that does ask questions on a fairly regular basis. So I guess he does have some curiosity behind this. Any thoughts or experience on using direct red light or UV light therapy on testicles and or anus as a method of boosting testosterone production? This is big if true. I did look it up while
You did.
you were answering the last one, and I guess
All right.
people do that. I don't know if you have any experience or you're.
I've never shown any UV light on my anus, so I really don't. I couldn't give you any like firsthand data on how it works, but I'm sure Greg Valentino would not mind trying it out. He likes to do stuff to his anus, so he might want to give it a roll. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it sounds a little wacky, but who the hell knows? Maybe it does work. Look, if you're low in testosterone, just take a shot of testosterone. It's a lot easier, believe me. It seems very complicated to have to shine a light on your rear end. Maybe I guess while you're watching TV, you can do it. I don't know. It just seems weird. I'd rather just take replacement therapy. I'm not that desperate to raise my testosterone. Sorry.
Let's take one more. This from NY Bigger. I'm always amazed when I see current pictures and videos of Paul Dillett. How can someone that was once one of the freakiest bodybuilders to grace the stage now look like he never picked up a weight in his life? I know that muscle atrophy is not used, but the before and after in his case is incredible. Is that just genetics? I know many people that stop bodybuilding and don't lift anymore, yet still have a base structure that shows some athleticism.
I had a theory about muscle building and stuff like that, and then I've changed it recently because I thought that guys that just were big, like freaks like Dillett and Levrone, it was because they just are genetically big and freaky, but they're not. It's what it is they're hyper responders to anabolic steroids. So when given like a pharmacological dose of either whether it be testosterone or anabolic steroids or a combination of the two, for some reason their bodies utilize that drug better than the average person, and they build enormous amounts of muscle with it. I never would have thought that I was one of those guys, but I think I am, because obviously I was over 300 pounds, but it took me a while to get there. But when I take 100 milligrams a week of my testosterone replacement, my levels are like through the roof, and it's almost unexplainable why they're so high. I get my blood work will read 1250, from 100 milligrams a week. And I don't know what's causing it. It's kind of weird. So from doctors I've talked to, they said that everyone utilizes testosterone differently. Some people inactivate most of the testosterone. Some people's bodies take that testosterone and utilize it more readily. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Levrone, Paul Dillett, guys that are hyper. Who also never trained in the off season? A lot of people don't realize Sean Ray. He never trained in the off season. He would just start up like 16, 18 weeks before a show, and he'd blow right back up. So Some guys, you put the drugs in and they just, their body just gets huge. And that's just the way it works. Other guys can take everything in the kitchen sink and they don't get big because that's just their body inactivates it all. So the genetics are how people's bodies react to the drugs. Now, every once in a while, you get a genetic freak like a Ronnie Coleman or a Kai Green who naturally, their body will take their natural testosterone and hyper respond to it. And that's why Ronnie and Kai look so great when they were natural. Sean Roden's another one who was a great natural bodybuilder. But not all great natural bodybuilders, are huge freaks. It seems like some people just hyper respond to the drugs. And I think Dillett was one of those people, and I think Lebroni too.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, any of our segments, any of the drama on this channel. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. All new episodes right now on the After Hour podcast, Heavy Muscle Radio. We have a couple of rants from last week, and then, of course, upcoming all new episode of the rebranded Dave Palumbo podcast. We'll see who's going to be on the show, but also all new episode of The Confessions with Jimmy the Bull and Lee Priest, kind of a how do I put a self-reflective episode where Jimmy kind of really opens up, talks about some of the struggles that he's gone through over the last couple of years, with the passing of his mother, and really, really elucidating look into Jimmy, his psyche, and everything. So, obviously a lot of fun in the episode, but it was very cool to see Jimmy really open up like that. So that episode is live right now on the channel. Go check it out. Like I said, if you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. Obviously, that helps, and we appreciate all of your support now and throughout the course of the calendar year. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.